When we think of Christopher Columbus, we often picture brave ships, ocean waves, and the discovery of America. But is that the whole story? Was he a hero of exploration or the start of centuries of pain for Native Americans? Let's find out the truth about one of history's most controversial figures. Join me as we travel back in time and across the Atlantic to understand the man, the myth, and the impact of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus wasn't trying to discover a new continent. Columbus, like many others back then, thought he could sail west and reach Asia, the land of spices and riches. Imagine sailing across a huge unknown ocean. No GPS, no accurate maps, just the stars, and a lot of hope. Columbus had that kind of bravery. He convinced King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain to pay for his trip, promising them riches and new trade routes. They had no idea they were about to find a whole new world, changing history forever. Columbus didn't just make one trip. He sailed across the Atlantic 4 times. On his first trip in 1492, he landed in the Bahamas, thinking he'd reach the East Indies. He explored the islands of Cuba and Hispaniola, meeting the native Taino people. Each trip after that was like a new chapter in a big story. Columbus brought more ships, more men, and a bigger desire to claim these lands for Spain. He explored more of the Caribbean, even reaching parts of South America on his third voyage. His voyages marked the beginning of a complicated and often sad time, the era of European colonization. Columbus's voyages, even with their bad parts, started a time of huge global exchange. Before Columbus, the Americas and Europe were like two separate places, each growing in their own ways. Columbus's voyages connected these two worlds for the first time. This exchange, called the Columbian Exchange, mixed cultures and ways of life. Foods we eat every day like potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate, they all came from the Americas to Europe. And the Americas got horses, cattle, wheat, things that changed their societies too. Ideas started to travel across the Atlantic. Science, culture, religion. It was a big mix of human experience. It wasn't always good, but it shaped the world we live in today. But this meeting of worlds wasn't all good. The arrival of Europeans in the Americas caused terrible things to happen to the native people. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, which the native people had never seen before, spread quickly and killed many people. It's thought that up to 90% of the native people in some areas died after the Europeans arrived. Columbus, wanting gold and believing Europeans were better than everyone else, enslaved the native people, forcing them to mine for gold and work on farms. This cruel system killed many people, destroyed cultures, and caused problems that still exist today. Columbus's voyages also started the transatlantic slave trade, a terrible time when millions of Africans were taken across the Atlantic to work in the Americas. This awful trade, driven by greed and cruelty, caused a lot of suffering and still affects us today. Not everyone in Europe agreed with colonization. Some people saw how unfair it was. One such person was Bartolomé de las Casas, a Spanish priest who saw the horrors of colonization himself. He first came to the Americas looking for wealth and fame, but instead he was shocked by what he saw. He saw the cruelty to the native people, the greed of the conquistadors, and he spoke out against it. He criticized Spanish colonization, speaking out against the enslavement of native people and fighting for their rights. Las Casas was like a light in the dark, a good person in a cruel time. His writings and his fight for justice show how one person can make a difference and fight for what's right, even when it's dangerous. Columbus's voyages weren't just a small event. They were a huge change that still affects us today. The world we live in today, with its connections, its diversity, and its inequalities, they all come from that year of 1492. The Americas, once home to many different cultures and civilizations, were changed forever by the arrival of Europeans. Languages were lost, traditions were stopped, and entire ways of life disappeared. The effects of colonization are still felt today, seen in social and economic problems. But just as things are always changing, so is our understanding of the past. We're not satisfied with simple stories of heroes and villains anymore. We're asking difficult questions, challenging old beliefs, and trying to understand history in a more complete way. Christopher Columbus was more than just an explorer. He started a global transformation. Whether you see him as a hero or a villain, understanding his legacy helps us understand our world today. Just as we study the stars to understand the universe, we must study history to understand what has shaped our present. History isn't just about names and dates, it's about people, choices, and consequences that still affect us today. When we look at the world today, with its connections, diversity, and inequalities, we can see the lasting impact of Columbus's voyages. So the next time you hear the name Christopher Columbus, remember that he wasn't just a man who sailed across an ocean. He started a chain of events that continues to shape our world. And it's our job to learn from the past, to see both the good and the bad, and to work towards a future where exploration and discovery go together with respect, understanding, and fairness.